Hi friends, I'm Shauna and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another upside and downside video, and this time it's on minimalism. Over the short history of my channel, I've gone back and forth on my perspective on minimalism, and really I've embraced it at some points and have really questioned it at others. My most recent video, I declared that minimalism wasn't for me. I think it's helpful, especially when it comes to minimalism, to hear both perspectives and both sides, just like I've said with the other topics, because I don't think any of these subjects, even minimalism, are wholly bad or good. Even if something isn't for me or for you, it doesn't make it bad or not for somebody. And on a personal level, this video I think is more of an evolution in my thought process towards minimalism. My personal stance aside, the ultimate goal of this video is to hopefully help you think about if minimalism could be for you. And if you're somebody who kind of does the take it or leave it approach, hopefully this video helps you decide on what you might want to take and what you might want to leave. We're going to start with the positives first, which I think will help contextualize some of the negatives. And before we get into my list, I want to have a definition, okay? And I take my definition from the minimalists, and they define the term like this. Minimalism is a tool to rid yourself of life's excesses in favor of focusing on what's important, so you can find happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. That's it. They didn't say you have to own a specific number of things. They didn't define excess. They also didn't say what's important. They just said, figure out what's important so you can find happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. Their definition is really not about stuff. It's about what the letting go can help you bring into your life. And that was important for me to remind myself of, because I think I was being overly critical of minimalism without necessarily thinking about the heart of it. So now let's get into the positives. And the first handful are kind of more of the obvious ones. And I think as we get down our list, we can get more into the nitty gritty and things that I really love about minimalism, or things that I think are really great about minimalism. Number one, minimalism allows you to spend money on things that matter. Your purchases with minimalism, I think, are ultimately more considered. I also have not said that minimalism will save you money. This is something that a lot of people say, which I think is more of a falsehood. It can, it really can save you money, but it also doesn't have to. Because if you're somebody who's ascribes to the buy less but buy better mentality, so let's say, for example, we'll take wardrobe. Last year, you spent $300 on your fall wardrobe, adding new pieces, what have you. Let's say you got 5 things with that amount of money. This year, let's say you're only buying 2 things instead of the 405, you're spending $400 instead of the $300 you spent last year because you're buying less, but you're buying better. A lot of replacements, even if you're trying to work on a replacements only type of system, and I think what minimalism really allows you to do is shift your money into things that matter. So you could be putting your money into classes or a fun date night, traveling, or savings, retirement, things like that. I think what minimalism does best in terms of stuff is it offers us intentionality. And I think that's a really great thing that does a lot of us a lot of good. Number 2 is an easier time cleaning up, tidying, and organizing. Less stuff is just easier to manage. I think when it comes to cleaning, potentially, you would probably spend a similar amount of time in cleaning. However, if we're saving time with tidying and organizing, that's still time saved. I don't think there's much more to say. Let's go to number 3. Okay, number 3, less stuff likely means less stress, or that your possessions are contributing less to your overall stress. I think that this can manifest in a lot of ways. How many times have you had to manage your returns? If you bought a lot of stuff, returning stuff can almost feel like a second job. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but I've had times like that. It can also be things like if you have a lot of stuff and you have people coming over, it could be so freaking stressful, and you could be spending so much time cleaning up your place just in order to have somebody over. And I'm not even talking about a basic like doing your dishes or cleaning your countertops. I don't know. I mean, I would like to say cleaning your floors or sinks are basics that like we should do. I mean, cleaning your sinks, like my bathroom sink, I do more than once a week. But it could just be hard to even get to some of the basics if we just have so much stuff that needs to be put away or organized before we can even start cleaning. And if you're a cluttered person, you have a lot of stuff, you might not even want people to come over to your house to begin with because you think that they might judge you for how clean your house is, and your house might not feel clean because you just have a lot of stuff and it's cluttered, not dirty. And then if you're like thinking about, okay, I have to clean before they come over, it might feel like it'll take you a month to do it because you actually have to declutter first, and then you have to organize, and then you can clean. But then also there can be so much anxiety about like going into your closet or like a drawer. I feel like we've all had that drawer at one point, or that closet. You don't want to open it because it's so stressful and everything is just going to come toppling out, or you can't actually open the drawer. So you just don't open the drawer, and then it just doesn't go anywhere, and it's stressful every time you have to open the drawer. There's lots of ways where stuff can contribute to your stress. And listen, pop off in the comments if you've ever had stuff-induced stress that I haven't mentioned. I'm sure there's more ways. Number 4 are guilt and shame, or just negative emotions around your shopping habits or just the amount of stuff you've accumulated. I've personally felt a lot of guilt and shame over seeing stuff in my closet with tags on it that I've never worn. I personally have a really bad habit of leaving tags on stuff for months, if not years. I've only taken off tags off stuff this year that I've actually worn multiple times over the course of 3 years. But that one might just be me. Finding stuff at the back of the drawer where you go, oh, I forgot I had that. If that happens a lot, that might not feel good. And just also, if you ever declutter, that can feel like garbage, especially if you are in a buy and declutter cycle. I know I felt tremendous amount of guilt decluttering anything, so then I don't, and I hoard it. And then it goes nowhere, and it builds up piles in my closet, and then it gets stressful when I open the closet because I have bags of things that need to be donated, but I haven't donated them. That's me. It could just be seeing how much stuff you have makes you feel like crap, or seeing the amount of money you've spent at the end of the month. You'd be like, oh shit, that's not a great feeling. And I think there's lots of ways where we can feel bad about how we've shopped or the amount of stuff that we have. And it could just feel really gross and icky. If we're able to either own less stuff or stop buying as much, I mean, both of those influence how much stuff you own. That could be a really positive feeling. Like, it can make you feel really great about yourself, because shopping and just owning a lot can cause a lot of problems, which I feel like people in this community are well versed in. Number 5 is spending less mental and physical energy on stuff, or we could just say having the potential for more energy on other things that aren't stuff. Shopping, adding to cart, scrolling, tidying, returning, decluttering, that is so much time spent. It could be hours in a week, more than hours in a week. We could be spending 8 hours a week shopping or adding to cart and scrolling. If it's our lunchtime activity, if it's our in-bed activity or morning activity, if it's our coping mechanism, we could be spending hours on just the shopping, adding to cart, scrolling, never mind the returning, decluttering, tidying, organizing, etc. Stuff can truly consume our lives as well as our thoughts. And some of us like having shopping as a hobby. If you're in that boat, I feel like the reason why we give it up is because we've reached that point where we can't afford to anymore, whether that's actual finances or in time or attention or stress. I think I've personally enjoyed the thrill of the hunt of finding the perfect thing, or I would like, even if we keep it simple, I would like a new pair of jeans. There's something exciting that happens when you open up all of your favorite stores and you get to check out which one it like might be the best. And then also like maybe if there's a deal or something that has consumed a lot of my time, but I have previously considered that fun. Occasionally, I think that is fun, but I was doing that all the time. And it just wasn't healthy. And really, especially if I'm not buying as much anymore, it was like a colossal waste of time. Like I could literally, let's say I did it 30 minutes a day for 6 days a week. It's 3 hours of my time. I could be spending going for a walk. I could be spending doing hobbies or being with friends, cooking, or even, let's just say, other more fun time wasters like watching movies or listening to music. At least if I'm watching movies, there's escapism and joy there in which I'm not potentially wasting my money. And I think when people stop shopping, then there's like really big voids in their life, and that could be such a beautiful potential to pick up a new hobby. There's so many things that we could do instead that could be really beautiful or fun, even if you want to spend that 30 minutes every day calling somebody or like talking to a friend and doing things. I feel like there's a lot of other things that we could do instead that would just contribute significantly to our overall happiness and enjoyment of our own lives. That's a beautiful thing. Number 6, and this one is a biggie. You can remove shopping as a coping mechanism and develop healthier habits. I think there's so much room when it comes to minimalism to improve your habits or to change your habits for the better. And I've talked a lot about this in No Buys, about how, shopping less can create room for hobbies, and being on Instagram less or being on social media or YouTube less can create room for hobbies. Shopping is a big part of minimalism that minimalism doesn't talk about. We'll get there. And on a recent perusal of the minimalist Reddit thread, I found this comment. And they said that the more physical and mental clutter that they let go of, the harder it is for them to handle any situation that might disrupt their peace. And they said that they felt really out of control. A commenter wrote that it wasn't about the stuff, but all the buying, looking at stuff, and thinking about stuff was a coping mechanism. And now that it's gone, they're left to deal with the big emotions and scary thoughts. I will absolutely overemphasize habits. Like I'm perfectly fine being that person to the point where like I might even be annoying about it. I'm okay with that because I think that the more people who know about the importance of shifting our habits when it comes to minimalism, consumerism, no buys, I don't know if that's just like my mission in life. Shopping is an integral part of minimalism, or not shopping or shopping less or changing our shopping habits. That's how we stop owning the amount of things that we've owned or in the quantity that we've owned them. And when you let go of stuff, that means, and when you also let go of shopping, you're letting go of all of the habits that you've developed around shopping and around stuff, and you need to change them. And it means that you're open to the opportunity of changing them for the better and hopefully permanently. But that also can be scary because you've changed or shifted your major line of defense or strategy for dealing with tough emotions or situations or stress. Not only do you need a different or alternative strategy or replacement, one that's healthier, but it also might reveal to you things, thoughts, emotions, or just things that you've been avoiding or not dealing with. There's something to be said for escapism, whether that's watching a show, movie, but unless you deal with your emotions, you'll never resolve them, or your feelings or your thoughts, the scary things, you'll never face them, and therefore face reality or things that you actually might need to change, learn, or grow from for the better. And shopping is a huge way to avoid the big feelings, the scary thoughts or emotions. If you're going to a habit, doesn't matter what it is, if the goal is to avoid thinking or feeling about the thing, and then you're leaving it unprocessed, which is what I was trying to get to before. When we don't deal with circumstances, hardships in our lives, tough thoughts or emotions, we can't grow as people. We can't have peace of mind as people. And that thought or that emotion will fester and it will crop up again. And maybe next time it's in a bigger or a more destructive way. Removing harmful coping mechanisms can be so impactful. It can be so important to our overall long-term happiness and contentment. Now, the next two are mindset shifts. So we'll call them number 7 and number 8, and they are related. So I'll talk about them together. Minimalism does allow for, but doesn't guarantee mindset shifts. So minimalism can allow us to remove the never enough mentality and finding contentment and or happiness outside of stuff. I think that the never enough mentality really does us such a disservice. And I think it keeps us in our own discontent. I've talked about this several times on the channel. If we're looking for shopping, the active buying to be a place that maintains our source of happiness, by that I mean, in order to get that dopamine hit, that happy feeling we get, that comes through buying, not owning. So we need to keep going back to that over and over again to get our happiness hit. It really leads to this vicious cycle. When we're just focused on getting that next hit of happiness, we don't think about our stuff, what we own, and we also don't take time to appreciate what we have. And we're not likely thinking about what's enough, when's enough, because the thought of enough isn't really the concern when it comes to the happiness hit, it's the hit. So that can just be a really destructive habit. And so if we consider when is enough, then we can help to shed the never enough mentality. If we just focus on or think about where we get our happiness or how buying stuff contributes to our happiness, it will mean, unless we do that there will never be enough, because the focus is on the happiness hit instead of the stuff, instead of the enough. So there will never be enough. We will never be satisfied with our lives or with our stuff when we're not even considering it as a factor at all. And we might be able to go days, weeks, maybe even months without buying something. But if that's the habit, eventually, without working on a mindset shift, we're eventually going to go back to that old habit in order to feel that happiness hit. And I did mention in, I think it's last week's video, about like materialism and shopping. And I mentioned this Berkeley study, and what they were saying is that materialistic people tend to be less happy because they're overall experiencing less gratitude in life and appreciation for what they have. And minimalism, I think, well, maybe not directly, indirectly asks us to be more grateful and be more appreciative of what we have and what already works and what we have in our life. The second one, finding contentment outside of stuff. I want to stop shopping. I want to try and find happiness outside of buying something. Then it's okay, how do we find contentment with our stuff? That is the knock-on effect. And I've also talked several times about the difference between happiness and contentment. I'll link the 2 videos. I've talked about that in the comments, or sorry, in the description, or in the cards, one of the 2. And we can still find happiness with stuff, but it doesn't have to be with the act of buying. It can be with the actual thing. Happiness is a surface level emotion. It's not one that's internal. So we can still find happiness with things, but we can shift it from buying to owning. And we can also go even further and find contentment in our lives and even think about contentment, maybe for the first time or the first time in a long time, if we're not so consumed with happiness and with buying things for our happiness. Minimalism really creates that opportunity for us. It doesn't guarantee that we'll think about contentment or that we'll find what brings us contentment, but I think it allows for the time and space to open up our thoughts to think that way. When it comes to shopping and owning a lot of things, our mental capacity is so filled with buying, shopping, scrolling, cleaning, decluttering, stress, anxiety. Our life outside of our stuff already does enough for that. If we free up that mental space from all those things I just mentioned, then we're creating more opportunity to think about contentment. And also we'll have the time and the space to pursue or try to figure out what could bring us contentment. And I really think that the gratitude and the contentment and the coping mechanisms are some of the biggest impacts of shopping and owning less. And I think that they can be really transformative in our own view of an experience of our own lives. Now, let's get to the downside. Number one, we can become just as obsessed with owning less as we were with shopping. We can do that with like counting stuff, spreadsheets, but also the mental energy and anxiety. And this obsession with what you own and how much you own can cause a lot of anxiety and an over scrutinizing of purchasing or of our purchases. And while I did say that there could be less mental energy spent on stuff if we're following minimalism, it's also possible for that to not be the case and become over obsessive and over scrutinizing of our stuff. But I think it's because we're still leading stuff-centered lives, if that's the case, where minimalism at its core is asking us, as I mentioned at the top of the video, to kind of be free of stuff to leave us room for other things. And I think that because of some of the ways that minimalism is talked about in its mainstream or in communities or forums, it is still very much about stuff. And so I get how people fall into that trap. I have. And we're just swapping one mental anxiety for another. And if this is you, this is something that you cannot let go of, then maybe minimalism really isn't for you. And I think that it can really lead to guilt and anxiety when it comes time to make a purchase, because I think that there's one level of obsession, which is how much stuff that you have. And that part, the owning part, that can be obsessive, but then it can be the accumulating and the buying can also be obsessive. Having a lot of anxiety or worry when it does come time to make the purchase, and just overthinking and over scrutinizing. I've had this happen just this year, that the anxiousness over things that didn't work out. Like you bought with best intentions but didn't work out. Oh my God, this happened to me with freaking deodorant. I've had the worst luck with deodorant. I was getting stressed out over freaking $4 deodorant. And also when I was buying things kind of like in bulk or like kits, I had this 14-piece art set, like paint set, which just came with mini tubes of paint. Oh my God, that art set, and a 10-pack of socks, again, the freaking deodorant. I became so consumed with the quantity that I was buying or something not working out. It was destructive. In minimalist circles, there seems to be a focus on quantity, owning less, and sometimes quality. I think a lot of people do desire better quality. And these two things become the hyper focus when it becomes time to buy something, that there's much less thought about, do you love something? Does it bring you joy? Does it bring a smile to your face? Those maybe less tangible qualities of things, they're rarely ever talked about in minimalist circles or good reasons to buy something. And I think that it's important to potentially consider those things, because if we're just obsessed with quantity and quality, then we're thinking about things in kind of more factual, numbered ways, and there can be an obsession there. But when we're like, okay, wait, but do we love it? It can become maybe less obsessive, and maybe we're more open to some of the subjective ways that we buy things. And, quantity and quality are things that we can maybe measure more clearly. Well, I had 84 things last year and now I have 102. Boo, shame on me. If we're asking about the less tangible, then I think it helps mitigate some of the less obsessive-y kind of thoughts or categorizations. But I think that for some people, buying a blouse because it's beautiful and will make you happy when you wear it means that you're materialistic, which I think a lot of minimalists don't want, or that you're going to own more blouses than you should, therefore going into excess, and maybe you own 1, 2, or 3 more blouses than you probably should. This kind of logic is just, for me, it's too much. I don't want the focus on my stuff to be how little can I own. Relatedly, I think there can be increased mental anxiety, and you could be spending no less time on shopping and thinking about stuff. If you're obsessing about buying the best you can afford or buying the best thing, if every purchase becomes high stake, sometimes we can become obsessive about buying the right thing and buying the best thing, that we take on those habits that we had of scrolling every page, spending weeks thinking about stuff, fretting about the purchase. Isn't it going to work out? Is it going to work out? And minimalism makes buying the bare minimum feel okay, but anything more than that can make you feel like crap if you're not buying just the bare necessities. And if your purchase wasn't the most thought out perfect thing, and it can make you feel bad when things don't work out. Guess what? We could be spending 1,000 hours looking up the best deodorants online, and you could still find one that doesn't work for you, and it's not your fault. Mistakes happen. And I think people maybe expect perfection with minimalism. Well, that's just not the case. We're setting ourselves up with unrealistic standards. Number 3 is kind of a 2-for-1. It's both the community and minimalism equals decluttering. Often I would say that communities are a good thing, can lend support and help you answer questions. But personally, I found minimalist communities, just for me, to be more stressful, more frustrating, and doing more harm than good. I don't check the minimalist subreddit more than once a month. I can't handle that much of that community because it borders on toxic for me, or unhelpful or triggering the more time I spend on it. And I guess we'll talk more about that in number 4, which is feeling like you have to follow norms and rules, which is perpetuated on those forums. Actually, let's just go there now, and we'll talk about minimalism and decluttering second. This is one of the things that happens the most on these forums. There are a lot of questions of what would a minimalist do here. Somebody was asking if they needed a vacuum recently, or if they could go without a vacuum. How many of this thing should you own? Or is it okay to own? I've also seen posts probably once a month as well about a minimalist travel bag, how to travel like a minimalist. How many things should you pack if you're traveling? People are looking for a blueprint, and people are also giving blueprints on these forums. Even when you're not asking, minimalism can really feel like there's this checkbox of how many things that you should own. And over time, you should probably be able to give away more, or to sell more, or to own less, because you're more experienced and you know that you can own less things. I don't want the question I should be asking myself to be how much I can live without. Sure, I can live without a vacuum and a dishwasher, but why? I mean, I don't have a dishwasher now, but that's because the place didn't come with a dishwasher. It annoys me to no end to have to hand wash my dishes. I would love a dishwasher. I would own one if I could. Honestly, I would. There's no reason to be self-flagellating about the stuff that we own in the sake of minimalism. If you want to do that and I don't know, it feels like it gives you cultural capital or clout to do that, I guess more power to you. Not own a dishwasher in the future for the sake of owning one less thing. And I really feel like a lot of people believe that there's a right and a wrong way to be a minimalist, but also because there is so much judgment of others. People who've called themselves minimalist on the internet, or even in the beauty space, about having minimalist makeup collections. Lara from Lara Likes Mascara asked an interesting question. I think it was either in a post or a video about what do you think is a minimalist makeup collection, and there were varied answers. You know, some people think it's one product per category. Some people think if it's under 100 things. Some people think if it's under 200 things. It does not matter what, well, I'll use this example. It does not matter what I think a minimalist makeup collection is. It's not going to change how Lara lives her life and like what she would want for a minimalist makeup collection. It's irrelevant what I think to how she lives her life. Is she going to conform to Shauna's vision of a minimalist makeup collection? Like, would I ever really know that? But people can be harsh and judgmental. I want to say especially minimalists because it's like, oh, you own 20 pairs of shoes. I own 5. This, I think, is where minimalism annoys people the most. I'm one of those people who gets annoyed by it, but also if you're not checking out the forums all the time and you're just living your own life in the way that you want to be a minimalist, then I think that you can mitigate this one pretty easily. Now let's talk about minimalism equals decluttering. This is one that is perpetuated all of the time on YouTube, as well as like Reddit and other formulas. Minimalism has often become synonymous with decluttering, often because people see this as the first step. And the decluttering advice, this is just how I feel. I feel like it outweighs the amount of advice on non-decluttering parts of minimalism. Or maybe not advice, but let's say conversations. This, I feel like, takes up the bulk of the minimalist culture's energy and time. I think that there is much less of a discussion on shopping and on habits, as an example. Or it'll be like how decluttering all my stuff brought me freedom. Okay, doesn't tell you how to do it, doesn't really talk about the nuances on that. Like, I just feel like that the decluttering has become a stand-in for minimalism to the detriment of other topics and the overall how to do it. Minimalism is not about stuff, or at least maybe my version of minimalism is not about stuff. And I feel like minimalism is about decentering stuff. That's the whole point. So we have more time and energy for happiness and fulfilling lives, which we will not get if we're just focusing on how little stuff we can and decluttering and decluttering and decluttering. You don't have to declutter one way or all at once, and that's not all that minimalism is. Or even, honestly, if you become a successful minimalism, decluttering should be the smallest and shortest part of your journey. Sure, you'll declutter regularly for the rest of your life, but eventually it's going to be maybe like once a month, and then maybe once a year, and then whatever, maybe only when you move. But it's not a decentering of stuff. It's a way to make stuff become or maintain its central place in how we do life. And I think that I really feel like a large part of why the decluttering is a big part of it is because minimalism is also an aesthetic. And that's the thing here. It's like, if we reduce all the stuff that we have, then we'll now comply more with the minimalist aesthetic instead of it being about the mindset shifts and the mental work that is really required of us if we want to be, or you, if you want to be a minimalist. Number 5, minimalism does not teach you how to shop less or how to do minimalism beyond basic decluttering. This is maybe an exaggeration because there are certainly people out there who have talked about it at some point. These videos exist. They are just harder to find, and they are less part of the community than decluttering is. Minimalism, I think, as a whole, or as a general statement, does a really bad job teaching people how to shop less. If I had gripes about minimalism, it would be it doesn't teach people how to shop less, and it makes it all about stuff and decluttering, which is like kind of ironic. And one of the things I mentioned before, it's like the people who are like, who talk about minimalists, it's like you'll eventually be so struck by how much you have that you'll just have a mindset shift. Like that will just bring on the mindset shift. Here's the thing, friends. Habits are systems that are like, they're routine, but you need to maintain them in order for them to work. You can really easily slip into overspending or over shopping years later. It's absolutely possible. You need habits to be a minimalist, and you also need to maintain them. You need to maintain your systems. And so I sometimes feel a little bit annoyed at minimalism because it feels almost kind of gatekeepy, where it's like, you can get here, but we're not going to show you how. You can declutter your stuff, but we're not going to show you how to shop less. Sorry, figure it out on your own. And then once you get here, then we can talk. That's why I feel like the no-buy space is maybe like a little bit too nichey for its own good, because I think that a lot of minimalists could really benefit from a lot of the conversations that happen in no-buy spaces, because I think that's how a lot of people could get there. Or if not a no-buy, a low-buy. I think that those are ways in to being a minimalist long-term past the decluttering. And if we just view minimalism as the declutter, then I think we're in for a rude awakening and no meaningful change for a lot of people. Now, number 6, which is our last topic for today, which is decluttering as like the holy gospel. Decluttering as the mantra of minimalism. Basically, the one solution for everything. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that minimalists would say like declutter your sentimental items, but if I want it, like, what do I do with this thing that I don't need? Like, you already made the determination that you don't want it or you don't need it or it's excess. Minimalism, like, declutter it, give it away, sell it. It's all all in that vein. When it comes to consumables, and I'm talking things from tea to paper, journals, candles, makeup, skincare, anything that can be used as an individual item within a reasonable time limit, the solution is often determined: declutter it. I think that sometimes that works. If you have so much stuff in that category, you could never conceivably use it within 10 years or a lifetime. Sure, you're going to need to declutter it, but I also think the onus is on you as an individual to use it all, like to use up some of your stuff. I think using up stuff is often the better solution, but it takes more time that people don't want. People want that noticeable physical change in their environment. And when you're not decluttering things or you're decluttering less, then that change isn't as big or as drastic. I think we need to take ownership over our stuff and over some of the choices that we've made. And in my opinion, with a lot of things, maybe you don't do this with everything, maybe you only do this with your favorite items, we will not learn some of the lessons we need to learn if we just declutter it. I am still working on hair care and skincare from 2019 before my no-buy. I mean, yes, makeup too, but I go through makeup and skincare at different rates. I still have stuff from before my no-buy that was intended as a consumable. And I'm not trying to say punish yourself, but how can we learn some of the lessons that we need to learn about what is a manageable amount of stuff for us, and also the reward of buying stuff, taking ownership of it, and finishing it to completion? I think that there's a really big reward in that. If we don't learn these lessons that we need to learn, and we're also part of a movement or a lifestyle that doesn't teach us about shopping differently or less, then how will you learn those lessons if you just declutter? Because I think then you'll be in a declutter and buy. I think that cycle can perpetuate with a lot of people, even into their best intentions of being a minimalist. And the buying and decluttering can in some ways hide on more problematic shopping behavior, especially if decluttering is a normal, regular, accepted part of minimalism. We're doing our job and it feels so great to own less. Well, maybe we can make it feel great to use up what we have. And I think that can be part of the appreciation process of what is left over on the stuff that we do have. And also, if you have a lot of stuff, it doesn't have to be makeup, although I talk about a lot with makeup. It could be tea or candles, how do we know what we like or we don't like if we don't take the time to use up our stuff? Because you could still go out and buy shitty tea or candles or skincare that doesn't match your preferences or interests if you never learn them. And I think that using up what you have is a great time to learn about your preferences. I mean, if the candle that you're burning is absolute hot fiery garbage and you can't handle it, then maybe don't burn it. But that's not going to be literally every candle that you have. And if it is, maybe you need to take some time, do a little inventory to figure that out. That's everything from me today. Those are my pros and cons. I had 8 pros, 6 cons. What I'm interested to hear from you, and I need y'all to pop off in the comments, okay? I am relying on you and your beautiful, intelligent, thoughtful brains, okay? I want to know more pros and cons in the comments. I want to hear from you because I know that there's more that I haven't talked about or considered today, and I want to hear them, and I feel like the community would benefit from hearing them too. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video and hanging out with me today. I would love it if you would subscribe to get more content like this. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon. Bye.